And we're live. Hello. So, if I can read fast today, I think we're going to get this book finished. So, I set and I edited a lot out we didn't need. I mean, look at this one chapter back here. So, I literally was able to skip 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, almost 6 pages of just him just rambling on. It was not important. Because it's towards the end of the book, and I don't know. He just liked to use a lot of big words. I just got notified of my own live. I must be signed in under my other account on my YouTube. That was funny. So I always give it a few minutes to wait for people to come in and get the notification. So there's Irish. Hello. I did. I slept till 1:15. I went to bed and see, as soon as I started talking, they were dead asleep before I started talking. And my husband always wakes me up at 7 a.m. when he comes home because it's not him. The dogs go nuts. They're like, oh my God, Daddy's home. He's going to feed us breakfast. What are y'all doing? I will kick you outside. It's nice out today. Toonie's like, outside? But as soon as they go outside, they want to come right back in. Hey, Cricket. Yeah, good Google morning. Good morning. Yes, definitely. It's still morning for me. My eyes are still a little blurry. Because I got up, I fell asleep in my makeup. So I had to wash my face and all that. And I immediately got on this. And I'm not wearing much makeup right now. Because 2 reasons. 1, I didn't want to. 2, my foundation was spitting at me yesterday. I've got to order some new ones. So I just didn't feel like it. Yep, I know you are. That's fine. Honestly, it's the end of the book. I think I've edited out a lot of BS towards the end. So we're just going to hit points. I've eliminated many pages. Many pages. All right. So what he did is he took the last 2 chapters, but he broke them up into like sections, which I would consider chapters of themselves. So anyway, there was some I left out completely. Like, oh, I missed this page, but we don't need it. It's to auditors. It's like rebalancing a case, working time in therapy. We don't need that stuff. So I was able to edit out a lot. The last part is a hoot. That was the last thing I read. It was about the author, and I wasn't going to read it until I started reading it, and it's so absurd. I gotta point some of it out to you. So we'll just, not all of it, but just some of the stuff we know is completely false. All right, so we know what, we'll go on in now. We remember what stimulation is. Hold on, I gotta use my nasal spray. Nose is running. But that just, re-stimulating trauma. So, wrong glasses. Ugh. And I'm going to the eye doctor on Tuesday to get new glasses. Thank God. Ugh, I'm way overdue. It's getting really hard to see. Okie dokie. So, like I said, I just picked sentences. I'm not reading whole pages anymore. Re-stimulation. The mind is a self-protecting mechanism. It is almost impossible to injure a mind. It is an extremely tough organism. Of course, when one begins to hew and saw upon it with metal or poison it with drugs or bacteria, or throw its natural armor aside, as with hypnotism, unfortunate things can occur. Now, I love this next part, because remember, we know him now. Charlatanism is almost impossible where Dianetics in any of its principles is being practiced. One either practices all Dianetics and gets results, or practices himself into a decline. That is a mechanical scientific fact. I love it when he says it's scientific fact. Dianetics as a self-protecting science demands practice. Oh, I kept going. Demands practice by clears or at least good releases. A clear very closely follows in it all his conduct the better aspects of the auditor's code. His ethical level is very high. All right. So, similarly, when an auditor is not cleared himself, or when he is not in therapy himself working toward the goal of a clear, he becomes restimulated. He had talked about being in auditing and hearing all of what people are saying can restimulate an auditor's trauma. He says anyone, oh, let me keep going. He is, after all, listening constantly to engrammic material in a patient. This engrammic material is the very stuff of which insanity is made. Oh, I don't need that. And then we skipped all of this. All right. Data from relatives. So, I thought that was a little bit interesting. The auditor will always be plagued by the anxiety of the patient to get data from relatives or friends. The request for this data itself is restimulative both to the pre-clear and the relative. Mothers have been made very ill by being given the restimulators of their own past illnesses by the child who has suddenly found out. It is a uniform experience that the data obtained from relatives, parents, and friends by the pre-clear is absolutely and utterly worthless. Here we are depending upon an aberree's memory when we have at hand with Dianetics a reliable source of accurate material. Auditors have had cases progress very smoothly and then suddenly stop progress. On inquiry, it is discovered that the pre-clear has been running around to his parents and relatives for material, and they, wanting nothing more than he forget all about what they have done to him, throw him red herrings which have to be carefully eliminated. Vicarious trauma, it's real. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, we know he got all his stuff from everything else. All right. Stopping therapy. The woman scorned has a violent rival in the pre-clear on whom therapy has been stopped by the auditor's decision. Keeping the pre-clear in therapy, no matter how seldom are the sessions, satisfies in some measure the effort his basic personality makes to fight clear of the aberrations. Disturbed by cessation of therapy, even though he may have insisted upon it being stopped, the ex-patient may begin either to rapidly decline or to attack, to his face or behind his back, the auditor and even therapy itself. Again, and it goes into some other stuff. And then he goes into talking about transference may occur in Dianetic therapy. The patient may lean on the auditor solidly, beg the auditor for advice, appear to hold out engrams in an effort to keep the auditor working hard and available and interested. All this is the result of a sympathy computation and his aberrated conduct. If you stop therapy on anyone, don't be surprised at anything that happens. You can only remedy it by resuming the case. I didn't read much of auditor evaluation. Honestly, some of it didn't even really make sense. The auditor must do much evaluation to himself. The auditor who challenges incidents, data, or otherwise plays God is going to have a thoroughly fouled up case on his hands before he goes very far, and he is going to have a subject who is not progressing. If the subject begins to run an engram where, I just left this in because it was one of those so absurd things that he had to say that this is where he goes too far. So, if the subject begins to run an anagram where Mama is having intimacy with 5 Eskimos, let him run it and never, 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 never tell him that you feel it was untrue. If you tell the subject you think he is imagining things, you may give him a serious setback. And it goes into talking about lying and, what do they call it? The lie factory. So he's saying that would be considered probably untrue. So, and something I was thinking about, we're going to hit a couple things that I thought about. I thought back to that video that that was produced by Scientology. I know. Yeah, the 5 Eskimos. Yeah, I know. That 12-year-olds are doing this. That 12-year-olds are auditing adults. And so keep that in mind. There's a couple things I remember thinking that in here, talking about how they all have to learn this and use this in auditing adults. I mean, they're literally, a psychiatrist or psychologist has to go through years and years and years of study. I guess it takes 5. Yeah. So I just left that in because it was absurd. All right. Oh, mental healers of yesteryear did not get results. Dianetics gets results. And one of the most important reasons why Dianetic gets results is that it is not trying to warp life to fit Dianetics, but is applying Dianetics to life. So that is why. Let me turn down my notifications. They're too loud right now. I wanted to make sure I heard my alarms. I turned everything up. I have been known to ignore. There we go. My alarm. All right. So now we're in a new chapter. So we got through that chapter. That was that long one. Dianetics, past and future. Now, I get, like I said, I edited this as much as I could. But there's a history of Dianetics that is completely fabricated. We know that. So that's why I left this part in, all of this. All right. The history of Dianetics would be the history of a voyage of discovery, of an exploration into new and nearly uncharted realms, terra incognita, the human mind, a land which lies an inch behind your forehead. The voyage has taken many years and the labor has been long, but we have charts now and can go and return at will. Observations of savage and civilized races in this and far climes form the foundation for the anthropological research. The writings of a few men in the last 4,000 years formed the scholarly pilots. In 1935, some of the basic research was begun. In 1938, the primary axioms were discovered and formulated. For the next several years, these axioms were tested in the laboratory of the world. The war interrupted the work, as wars will, being chaos, but shortly after the cessation of actual hostilities, research renewed. Within a year, the fundamentals of this science, as they applied to the human mind, had been integrated. They were tested on a long series of random patients, and each test further refined the work. But each application brought specific results. Now, I don't remember there being... I haven't done a deep dive into LRH. I did a little bit, but there wasn't any real research before he wrote this book, as far as I know, other than him going, stealing from other cultures and stuff, or other sciences. Well, My brain's not working very good today. So I'm assuming this is all completely fabricated. There was never any testing done of Dianetics. I think he just wrote it, opened the centers, and they did it, to my knowledge. So let's see. Oh, I kept going. 5 years after the initial resumption of labor in 1950, the work was prepared for release. All tests having brought forth the conclusion that Dianetics is a science of mind, that it does disclose hitherto unknown laws about thought, and that it has worked on every type of inorganic, mental, and organic psychosomatic illness. Further, in the refinement of form attained, it was proven possible for the work to be used easily by people not lengthily trained. Why does he have to make sentences hard? Yeah, if that, yeah. If that. Well, he probably used the mind control on everybody he ever met. The goal we have here reached is a science which is workable and which can be worked with success by briefly taught individuals. This goal has not hitherto been attained or even approached. Dianetics cures and cures without failure, and there are further goals. Education, medicine, politics, and art, and indeed all branches of human thought, are clarified with Dianetics, and even so, that is not enough. The history of Dianetics is scarce begun. Plan A included the perfection of the science, its testing on patients of all kinds, and finally the dissemination of Dianetics as pertaining to therapy. That plan ends with the release of this book. Plan B includes a further research into life force, an attempt at resolution of some of the ills not yet embraced, such as cancer and diabetes, and the perfection of techniques discovered and their dissemination that will end Plan B. He has more on a Plan C. We don't need. Judiciary Dianetics. This is a brief summary of Judiciary Dianetics is included in this present work as an aid to the auditor. Judiciary Dianetics covers the field of adjudication within the society and amongst the societies of man. Of necessity, it embraces jurisprudence and its codes and establishes precision definitions and equations for the establishment of equity. It is a science of judgment. That hurt my head. Why does he have to use such? Let's see. Jurisprudence, the study of law or of a particular part of law. Okay. The fundamental test of rationality is the ability to differentiate right from wrong. I thought this part was interesting. The fundamental factors in establishing censure are good and evil. Without precision definition of these four factors, any structure of law or judgment is rendered forceless and becomes involved through its introduction of arbitrary factors which seek to adjudicate by introducing errors to nullify errors. Reason I thought this was interesting, he was bringing up right from wrong and good and evil when they blur those lines quite a bit, or he blurred those lines quite a bit. The problems of jurisprudence and indeed all judgment are inextricably interwoven with the problems of behavior. An ideal society would be a society of unaberrated persons, clears, and conducting their lives within an unaberrated culture, for either the person or the culture may be aberrated. Let me get a drink of water. I liked how he's going to go into how societies are. That pretty much I'm about to read you how L. Ron Hubbard is going to save the whole world. And this is probably where a lot of this comes from. You know, people in Scientology think they're saving the world. And I know they truly believe it. The auditor is interested in what has been done to, not done by, his patient. For whatever the patient has done is forever beyond recall and was not the source, but was only the manifestation of his griefs. So now he's kind of okaying behavior because that's not important, and it was caused by, it says manifestation of griefs, or his engrams, I would say. Perhaps at some distant date, only the unaberrated person will be granted civil rights before law. Perhaps the goal will be reached at some future time when only the unaberrated person can attain to and benefit from citizenship. These are desirable goals and would produce a marked increase in the survival ability and happiness of man. That's a bit out there. So if you have any issues, then you can't be a citizen of this future world. The past acts of an individual who has been cleared should be stricken from his record, even as his illnesses have been. For with the cause removed, there can be no point in retribution unless society itself is so aberrated that it desires to operate on sadistic principles. There is more than idealism here, for it can be shown that aberration in individuals and the society rises in progressive ratio to the amount of punishment employed. And this is where the cover-ups in Scientology occur. Hey, No Face, because he's saying that once they've been cleared, once they've been audited, that anything they've done should be stricken from the record and not held over their head. But what if they keep, I'm picturing, child abuse. So, but they keep doing it. They keep going to auditing. They keep getting cleared. They say, oh, more auditing will fix this person, but yet it never does. So they kind of pretty much tell anybody that's done wrong that get your auditing, go clear, and you're absolved. I mean, even as a Christian, even when you get baptized as an adult, that your sins are washed away. I agree. I mean, I like that part of it, but they don't say that if you've committed some high crime in your society that you shouldn't be accountable for it. I've never heard that, anywhere. But, I mean, there's forgiveness in that, but you still have to take accountability. We are here at a bridge between one state of man and the next. We are above the chasm which divides a lower from a higher plateau, and this chasm marks an artificial evolutionary step in the progress of man. And this is where he comes up with the bridge analogy. The auditor is at that bridge. When cleared, he will be at its higher end. He will watch much traffic cross. He may see customs, laws, organization, and societies attempt to avoid the bridge, but being swept along, tumble into a nothingness below. Ooh. Oh, we don't need that. All right, Dianetics and war. Again, I think I was going to skip this whole section, but he talks a lot about societies I thought might be interesting. All right. The social organisms, which we call states and nations, behave and react in every respect as though they were individual organisms. The culture has its analytical mind, the combined sentience of its citizens in general, and its artists, scientists, and statesmen in particular. The social standard memory bank is the data accumulated along the generations. There is a precision definition for each social level as related to the tone scale. Remember, the tone scales are interesting way to gauge things. A free society working in complete cooperation toward common goals would be Tone 4 society. A society hindered by arbitrary restrictions and oppressive laws would be a Tone 2 society. A society managed and dictated to by the whims of one man. Oh, this is the part I wanted. Just picture L. Ron Hubbard here. And he's saying this is a bad thing. A society managed and dictated to by the whims of one man or a few men would be a Tone 1 society. A society governed by the mystery and superstition of some mystic body would be a Tone 0. So, I think he's quoting other religions there. The potential of survival in each case can be seen anywhere in history. Any golden age is a Tone 4. Oppressive practices, individual greeds, and miscalculation in general reduces society by introducing into it dissatisfied elements. To cope with these, in the past, further oppression has been used. The survival of the society reduced further. With more oppression came new engrams, and so down the tone scale slipped the chances of long survival. And with this reduction of potential came pain as the lower zones were entered. And the whole time I'm reading this, I'm thinking Scientology, how Scientology is ran, how LRH ran it, what goes on inside is, to me, low tone. But he says it's a higher society, but that's not really what it is. Societies rise and fall on the tone scale, but there is a danger point below which a society cannot go without reacting as would an individual so suppressed. The society reaches a break point and goes mad. The point is around 2.0. War is an international Tone 1. It is no more rational than any individual who, reaching a general and chronic Tone 1, is placed in an institution or temporarily Tone 1 commits some crime and is thereafter imprisoned, but there is no goaler to societies. There is at this time only death, and so they die, and so they have died. Oh, jailer. There is no jailer to societies. That makes more sense. Why didn't you just say that? So, and then it just goes into international stuff. Didn't make a lot of sense. The future of therapy. In 20 or 100 years, the therapeutic technique which is offered in this volume will appear to be obsolete. Should this not prove to be the case, then the author's faith in the inventiveness of his fellow man will not have been justified. We have here something which has not before existed, an invariably working science of mind. The application methods cannot but be refined. Yeah, pretty much. Oh, his material in 3 groups: simple logic, stolen material, and lies. Yeah. All sciences begin with the discovery of basic axioms. They progress as new data are discovered and as the scope of the science is widened. Dianetics are such solid scientific truths that they will be altered but little. The data discovered by those axioms is already large and daily expanding. That's the kind of stuff gets me. In the case of the wheel, basic principles were laid down which have not altered to this day. The first workable wheel must have been a rather unwieldy affair, but compared to no wheel, it was a miracle. Thus with Dianetic therapy. So, I'm comparing Dianetics to the wheel. And the end of this chapter says, in this handbook, we have the basic axioms and a therapy which works. For God's sakes, get busy and build a better bridge. So now we are at it's an appendix, but what I had to leave stuff out. It's all about how successful Dianetics is, and he just quotes so much exaggeration I couldn't even read it all. Dianetics, the bridge to the future. Like the volcano on his now classic cover, Dianetics exploded into a troubled world in 1950 with the raw power of hope for mankind. To millions of people recovering from the devastation of World War II, the book provided rational answers, a hope of moving onwards, a chance to put their lives back in order. Man was apparently capable. So right there, we've talked a lot about, what drew people to this book. That explains a lot. It was just after World War II. Then we go after the 50s into the 60s and 70s. We have the Vietnam War. People coming home with a lot of issues and no help. So like I've said before, I can see how this would have looked inviting to a lot of people. Man was apparently capable of creating his own monsters. The atomic bomb had become a symbol of his ability to destroy himself and every living thing around him. Help most certainly did not exist in the complex psychiatric text researched in the death camps of Germany. Their ice picks and electric shock machines were only further evidence of man's inhumanity to man. Dianetics provided the possibility of personal triumph, a chance to win over the forces of evil, whether in a global context or within the private universe of each individual's attempt to achieve his goals for self-betterment. The book sold out overnight. It was a resounding success because it answered not only man's search for inner peace and happiness, but confronted head-on each individual's responsibilities for his fellow man and gave practical ways to overcome the seemingly impossible task of setting mankind back on the road to a better world. Dianetics is still one of the most talked about books in America. Not for the reasons he thinks. Can you change the world with a book? In L. Ron Hubbard's own words, ideas and not battles mark the forward progress of mankind. This is the mission of Dianetics, the modern science of mental health, to build a bridge between the suffering and pain of a world gone mad to a better world, a world without insanity, without criminals, and without war. This is the goal of Dianetics. That promise has been validated by millions of people from all points of the globe. And we know that they haven't had millions of people in Scientology ever. Total. The stories of its success are sufficient to build a mountain of hope, and each personal story is evidence of an individual mountain conquered. Then it just goes into a bunch of personal stories that people wrote in. When Dianetics reached the bookstores on May 9, 1950, it sparked a grassroots fire. Headlines in the Los Angeles Daily News called Dianetics the book and proclaimed that it was taking U.S. by storm and causing the fastest growing movement in the U.S. Did they really have articles that said that? Or did he just give out press releases? Hey, Carrie Ann. Oh, I just saw your email. It popped up on a notification. I'll get you that. Where was I? So I'm curious if anywhere this actually said this in any newspaper. Taking U.S. by storm and causing no, I said that. A daily Dianetics series written by a staff reporter tried to keep up the pace as the book swept across the country. The book quickly rose to the top of the New York Times and other bestseller lists and stayed there for months. There were 6 printings in just 7 months. Now, again, maybe people didn't see the publications, but it failed in 3 months. Because he did, and I think he goes to talk about what he did. He had a group, and he had this woman, and he was proving how Dianetics causes a perfect recall. and she couldn't remember anything. She didn't even get the color of his tie right, and everybody got up and left. But, again, communication back then, I mean, unless you read it was in a national newspaper, and then, not everybody reads that either. So maybe it was still selling and people didn't know any better. I don't know. But I know eventually Dianetics centers went bankrupt. The guy that went in with him got the rights to the book. He lost the rights to the book for a while. That's why he started writing Scientology. He had to change it because he lost the book. Anyway, so I'm curious to see if this is more made up stuff. I'm sure it is. Demands for training in Dianetic techniques poured into Mr. Hubbard. He began giving instructions to people in his home in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and thus the first Hubbard Dianetic Research Foundation was formed. As popularity of the book continued to rage, 6 Dianetic centers reaching from the Atlantic coast to Hawaii sprang up. Hubbard spent most of 1950 traveling throughout the country giving lectures and demonstrations in Dianetics auditing to meet the growing demand. In August, now this is when it failed. It came out in May, died in August because of this right here, but he's counting this as a success. So we know this is bullshit. In August, he spoke to a crowd of over 6,000. It was not 6,000. It was not that many people at all. I think it was like a couple hundred maybe. But I can't remember numbers, so I could be wrong. 6,000 at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles, and within days had established the Los Angeles Hubbard Dianetic Research Foundation. In December, he gave a series of 15-minute lectures on over 126 radio stations. I don't remember ever reading him being on the radio. Oh, you could help me then. Well, actually, it wasn't so much the Dianetics centers, I think, as the people that supported him, or oh, my nose is bleeding. Ooh, I didn't know that. Sorry, guys. I think because he touted it so hard, and he had doctors and people that had written off on it, but then after doctors started reading it and started to publicize that it was complete and utter BS, and then this thing at this auditorium, when all these people got up and walked out, I think is the biggest reason it failed. And also because he also got in trouble for possible malpractice, because he was saying this was kind of a medical or, mental health. That's why I think in Scientology, he made sure that it was under more of a religious heading, whereas Dianetics wasn't. Yeah. And the doctor that wrote off on the book turned on him. Other doctors had a chance to read it and were just crapping all over this book. And even the guy that invested with him wanted his money back and sued him and all of that kind of stuff. And he also bankrupted it, taking all the money. Yes. And so when he had to pivot and create Scientology, he put that more under a religious heading, so he couldn't get in trouble for medical malpractice. And doctors couldn't, crap all over it like they did Dianetics. So I think like I said, this guy was evil smart. He didn't accomplish anything else in his life. He failed at everything, even school. And this was the one thing he was good at. God, it kills me every time I think of it. I'd heard a little bit about that. I don't know the details on that, but if that's in Barefaced Messiah, I'm about to get caught up with that. So yeah, I think that's how he was able to insulate himself with the religious angle. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I did one way back where I just did a history of L. Ron Hubbard from early life to when he started Dianetics. I didn't go into the Dianetics to Scientology that much. Because I just wanted to go up to this book and how that happened. I get what you meant. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff that happened that made him have to pivot. And had he not pivoted, that would have been the end of it. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know much about no, I did hear somebody talk about it. I don't know when or where. Could have been John Atack for all I know. But yeah, the unaliving of the instructor and his wife. Yeah. I did hear about it. You may have even told me, Cricket. Okay, so he's just, this whole chapter is touting how great Dianetics is. So we're not reading all of it, but just some of the incredulous stuff I had to highlight. Dianetics technology has gradually become the accepted methodology in many different spheres of activity. In newspapers, national magazines, and research journals, evidence of this impact appears daily. Now, I don't know if this is in current books. Remember, this is when it was hard for people to test this, to see if these, there's a word, to find out if what he's saying is true or not. So for many years, you had to really deep dive somehow, either as a journalist, or it would have taken a lot of time to go through all of these. There's a word that I just cannot think, and I know the word. Touting something. I think, but you guys know what I mean. So this stuff was just outrageous. For example, before Dianetics, it was unheard of to attribute certain illnesses to prenatal influences. But as an immediate result of the book, more than 40 articles appeared in the early 50s supporting the idea of prenatals. Doctors, for example, now fully accept the influence of prenatals on a variety of conditions such as physical ills, alcohol abuse, and drug addiction. In hospitals throughout the world, Hubbard's guidelines regarding silence during operations have been adopted. A British journal reports that 3 scientists from leading universities have found that what anesthetized persons hear can affect them. Widespread national headlines confirm that patients hear whatever is said around them while under anesthetics and can suffer ill effects from these remarks. To prevent shocks to a child that could leave... oh, God. I have to drink some water before this. You are going... Don't have anything in your mouth when I read this. Because you will spit it out or choke. This, oh my gosh. This guy saved the world. To prevent shocks to a child that could leave permanent damage, removable only by Dianetics therapy, Hubbard in 1951 advised silence in the delivery room and the laying of the newborn on the mother's abdomen before the cord is cut. One of the world's leading obstetricians, it doesn't matter who, as for hearing, nothing could be simpler. Be silent. This apprenticeship of silence, so indispensable for mothers, is just as important for those who perform the delivery, the obstetricians, the attendants. In a natural birth, he said, the baby emerges and we settle the child immediately on its mother's stomach. What better place could there be to sever the umbilicus when the child has scarcely left the mother's womb? Is an act of cruelty whose ill effects are immeasurable. Fortunately for the health of countless children, Hubbard not only did the pioneering research, He also found a prevention and a remedy for aberrative effects of shocks received prenatally or during birth. Preventive Dianetics has today been adopted by thousands of parents and the resulting happy children, a testament to Hubbard's writings some 36 years ago. A new generation of Dianetics children is being born. Over the past 36 years, evidence of the results of Dianetics has been collected, story by story, and now thousands of documents fill rooms, file cabinets, and archives throughout the world. Validation of Dianetics exists in the form of graphs and test scores, individual testimonials, films, tapes, and personal histories. I have no words. So it was L. Ron Hubbard who started laying the baby on the mother. Just saying. Rewinding. Hey, Makti. I know. So suddenly, yeah. Okay. Could that first part again. The health of countless children. That one or the other page. I'll reread it because I still can't believe it. Oh yeah. Yeah, and I didn't know the details of when he kidnapped his kid. I mean, I knew he threatened the mom to get the no fault divorce. He threatened to dismember the child. I did not know that. Yeah, I know. Oh, and he's the savior of all children. I wasn't kidding. I know. I know. I know. I know. I knew, I've heard and I knew that he touted a lot of things that weren't true. But dang, I'm not done yet. There's more. Yeah, carry on. Gross and evil. As a matter of fact, that was the first thing my son said in the elevator. All we did is watch L. Ron Hubbard's life history, and my son was a Boy Scout and he was in the Navy. So when we got in the elevator, he goes, "That is just evil. Just luring people in here with false information." And I shushed him because I'm like, there was probably cameras and mics in there. Yeah. Crazy, but was able to use it against people. That's so. Today, documented by their shining success stories, clears number in the tens of thousands. Now, this book was printed in, what did I say, 86 or 96? Well, it said 36 years since he wrote it. Now, if they have 30 million members, why has it only helped tens of thousands? Not hundreds of thousands, not millions, tens of thousands. Gotta watch what you write there, buddy. And then it just goes into personal stories, people that have written in. All right. Hubbard has written, "A culture is only as great as its dreams, and its dreams are dreamed by artists. As more and more creative artists use Dianetics technology, a renaissance in the arts has indeed been sparked amongst them." So now he's created an artistic renaissance, not just science and hospitals, but now in the arts. Now there's a story of a guy who went into an emergency room and audited his brother who had drowned and was brain dead. I don't, if you guys want me to read it, I will, but it's not really necessary. Now this one, everything I highlighted that from now on was just so over the top. That's why we're reading it. Whether they have saved lives, healed marriages, boosted confidence, or helped a person achieve his lifelong goals with Dianetics technology. These people who are using Dianetics truths and principles are adventurers. And then the end of this chapter. So this whole chapter was written by the editors. And the last thing they said is, for the heights to which mankind can now rise have only been hinted at. The adventure is only the beginning, the editors. Yeah. He got married. They had a child. When he got out of the Navy after World War II in California, she was in Washington. He just didn't go back. Then he met Jack Parsons' girlfriend, stole her, married her, without divorcing the first wife. This is all before Dianetics. So, if you're interested in that, I did a standalone video, or not. No, I did a video instead of reading this one time. We just went over his history a little bit. And then I did a short video about L. Ron Hubbard and black magic in 1946, 47, also before he wrote Dianetics. That he learned a lot of mind control in there. So this is about the author. It's the end of the book, but I can't read it all, but I'm just going to read the most ridiculous stuff. I didn't highlight this, but I'm going to read it, the first sentence. L. Ron Hubbard is acclaimed by millions as the foremost writer of self-betterment books in the world today. His nonfiction works alone have sold millions of copies to Scientologists. Because the whole reason he wrote Dianetics is he said, I'm not making any money on my novels. They were people that knew them when he was living off his writing. He said him and his wife, they were always in need of money. So there was only a few successes in the 30s and 40s when he was writing. He said to make money, you need to start a religion. And that's exactly what this, and I don't know if this was part of that thought or a precursor, not sure. But all right. So from the open ranges of his home state of Montana to the hills of China, from the frigid coast of Alaska to the jungles of South Pacific Islands, whether working with men on explorations or teaching inexperienced naval crews to survive the ravages of a world war, Ron truly learned what man and life are all about. Armed with a keen intellect, boundless energy, limitless curiosity, and a unique approach to philosophy and science, which emphasized workability and practicality over all else, Ron embarked upon his study of life and its mysteries while still in his teens. Now, the only thing I know about in his teens is he read Aleister Crowley's book when he was 16. And so thus became his interest in Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley was a Satanist and a sadistic, evil person. Traveling extensively throughout Asia and the Pacific, he saw firsthand the use of Far Eastern philosophies, and on a voyage from Seattle to Washington, D.C., he was also befriended by a student of Sigmund Freud, who subsequently taught him the meager amount of knowledge that existed in the Western school of mental healing. And we all know Sigmund Freud was not all that. He became one of the most prolific and well-known authors of the heyday of popular adventure and science fiction in the 1930s and 40s. I'll say prolific. He did write a lot. Doesn't mean he was successful. Interrupted only by his service in the U.S. Navy during World War II. Partially disabled at the war's end, Ron continued his research. And then I left all this other stuff out. With his research fully completed, L. Ron Hubbard departed his body on January 24th, 1986. His physical departure was by no means an end to his work. On the contrary, it marks a beginning of a new and unprecedented expansion of his life's achievements through the efforts of the millions of his friends who are forwarding his dream. And that was it. That's the glossary. We're done. Look at all that. This is all glossary index, but check this out. After those, we have this section. This is more books by L. Ron Hubbard, books to help you help others, purification rundown, Scientology, more Scientology, books for the workplace, study aids. I mean, these are all books and stuff. We're done. Oh, we did it! We did it. All right, let me switch glasses so I can see what you're saying. I broke his brain. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure. For sure. But something I found out listening to John Atack and when Natalie's interview, we used to think he was on some sort of speed or he had a mental that made him write a lot. He didn't write any books after this. It was assistants and other people that coalesced his lectures, his recorded stuff. They wrote the books. The only thing he was prolific in writing is he wrote those policies and stupid and communications every single day. Yeah, he did write that every single day, like how to freaking wash windows with newspaper and vinegar, every single thing they had to do. I'm like, when I found that out, I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I know. Yeah, he was a bit, yeah. He had a few, really successful novels, and they also serialized his novels in a weekly newspapers or magazines. They would publish it weekly. So he did have a few successes. It just didn't seem to be consistent monetarily the whole time. But yeah. I'm yeah. Yeah. I do believe the malignant narcissism. Do you remember me reading that before? It pretty much, malignant narcissism makes you want to be sadistic and humiliate others to make yourself feel better. And that's pretty much what he did. And another thing I learned last week I went over John Atack's first part of the interview and we talked about it. Oh, where'd my thought process go? I can't remember where I was going with that. Sorry. Malignant narcissism. Oh, he talked to a person that did tests on cult subjects. And he said in Scientology and other cults, everybody he tested had the same personality. He went over to general Christianity, not the really heavy ones, but just a regular Christian. They had all 16 personalities. They kept their personality. So he said what L. Ron Hubbard was doing was cloning himself, teaching everyone to act like and be himself. I don't believe everybody that has gone through Scientology did that. Some of them were able to keep their own selves still. But David Miscavige is a clone of L. Ron Hubbard. And so are many, 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 many people that have grown up and been in this for long periods of time. Neil Gaiman, probably. So, oh, could be that too. Could be that too. Dianetics said he told somebody, he said, I'm not making enough money on my novels. And I forget the exact wording, but he said, to make money, start a religion. I think he just wanted a lot more money. I mean, I think it was probably a good, profession, but I think he just wanted a whole lot more money. Yeah. 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 Yeah, for sure. Yep. I forget that word sometimes, the disassociation. Yeah, creating a constant trauma response to control. We talked about that that in here, that he creates an environment of constant restimulation. And who's a survivor, said, yeah, you always feel unease and stressed out. She said unease. Other people have said stressed out. So, and he's in the beginning of this book, he lays out what he's actually going to do to you, but he says he's saving you from it. And he said that when you're in a constant state of restimulation, it shuts down part of your brain and you become zombie-like and easy to control. He said that. I'm like, he's telling everyone what he's actually going to do, because we're on the outside and know what happened. We saw it. But people reading the book, he's saying, this is what I'm going to save you from and teach you how to get away from or fix it or however he was saying it. And I was like, wow. Oh, wait, what? Yeah, and to be honest, if I hadn't done the research that I did, my first initial thought was, yeah, he was crazy and he was on drugs. But because I've read this book, I've listened to like John Atack, people that knew him, and you know what? There's a comment I've told you guys about before that I talk about in that Black Magic segment I did, that made me, because there's different levels of people in our chats, new to this, just watches a few things here and there, didn't do a deep dive like some of us have. And so they tend to gravitate towards that explanation. When I heard this comment from him, I knew then, because people have also said, well, did he eventually believe his own BS? Did he fall into that, oh, this is all real? Did he lie to himself? No. He said, if I can remember, he said, life is a game. Oh, let me get this right. Life is a game, and everyone are players in the game. Oh, I don't want to say it wrong. Let me see if I can find it. I have it wrote down somewhere. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it. But when I heard that quote, I was like, he knew all along what he was doing. I'm not finding the exact quote. Let me try to get it. So he said, life is a game, and we're all players in the game. Oh, I can't remember it. Anyway, the end of that quote is, life is a game. There's players in the game. He said, and at the end, he says, and then there's the game maker. The game maker, I can't remember it, you guys. I will find it and put it on my community tab. I just can't remember it right now. My Swiss cheese Fibro brain isn't letting me. But anyway, he pretty much said that everybody was playing a game and he was the game maker and he didn't have to follow the rules. He could do whatever he wanted. So that do as I say, not as I do thing, that was his core principle. That's what the quote was about. And that he was gaming everyone else. Life is a garden to get. Oh, hey, David. Hello, hello. We just finished the book. Yay! Yeah. Either he got it or it didn't work. I'm not sure. Whoa, whoop, wrong one. Yeah. Yeah. I know, right? I'm amazed that we got through it. But yeah, that quote and the other one, we're gonna start A Piece of Blue Sky from John Atack next. And I'm gonna try to do the same thing and just kind of unless it's necessary, I'm gonna try not to read it word for word. I just kind of want to go over it. And because he has a lot of good information about L. Ron Hubbard, a lot of this stuff we're talking about right now, he's probably going to talk about. But he said the reason he titled that book is when he opened the first Dianetics Center, he turned to somebody and said, "Okay, folks, let's go sell these people a piece of blue sky." And that was another quote of his that made me believe that, no, he never believed this BS. He knew all along it was BS. And all he wanted out of it was to control people and make money. I remember one day you're like, I'm only going to come back when Kim's on the screen. Really? I need to start looking over it a little bit. But the thing that I've seen from John Atack at least is that he got a bunch of research from somebody else. And it was like a lot of stuff that maybe other people wouldn't have found out. And things like he had books on hypnotism on his bookshelf. And also, when I was doing the quick history, L. Ron Hubbard was a stage hypnotist for a short time. I don't know if he was successful or not. Yeah, I'm good with he was an evil piece of crap. I don't care so much of any kind of explanation. I think the reason a lot of us really zero in on the drug part, especially the psych drugs, is because that's a high crime in Scientology. It's another, I'm the king, I can do whatever I want, you have to listen and do what I tell you. That's pretty much his whole thing. And he screwed over everybody he ever met or worked with or got money from. I mean, he failed in the Navy. Yeah, that's pretty much it. He was just, and like I said earlier, Brian, and I've said many times, I'm like, the guy failed. Well, he was an okay writer, but he failed at everything he ever tried. He couldn't get into the Naval Academy. He dropped out of schools. I mean, just everything he ever did. But this he had to be successful at. Yeah. I mean, I've been in the military. My son was in the Navy. I'm like, you pretty much just have to do what you're told. Now, when you're in charge of a ship, yeah, you have to make decisions. But I don't know, maybe get more solid information before you chase an imaginary sub around the harbor for 60 hours, which was his first command. So, that's what I mean. He had to work at failing. He had to work at it. And if you think about it, in many ways, he failed at Scientology. He didn't follow it. He ended up just losing it and getting paranoid and hiding and being a self-imposed exile, while Scientology is going on over here doing its thing, and you're descending into madness. So it didn't even help him at all. But that's because he was all kinds of effed up. But like I said, he was evil smart. He's diabolical, somebody said once. Diabolical. Got a lot of people involved. But I've said that too. People ask, well, why has Scientology survived 70 years and the loss of a leader? Most cults don't. Well, yeah, that's true. Everybody does it to an extent, but he did it on a grand scale. What did I start to say before that? I totally forgot, you guys. My brain is not working today. I was up too late. Hey, we were talking about you. Were your ears burning? We just finished the book. Hubbard was paranoid, definitely. And then as an ex-Scientologist, you became paranoid too. Yeah. Well, we just said, Dianetics said in a cult, what they do is they clone you, or they make clones of the leader, so that you end up being like that person. Ah, yes. And see, that's why I don't think he did well in the Navy or school, because people were in charge of him and he didn't like that. Yeah, that's has to be some of it. I mean, he's got way too much emphasis on the mother in this book. But yeah, and so like I said, but I've said this many times, I'm really glad that I did read this. I think some of you have been here enough times that I've learned a lot. As far as, I've said this a lot. I don't want to be a broken record, but my goal in starting this was, okay, I know what this really is now, but to go back when it was first published and why people got into it in the decades after that, and what may have drew them in, and what kept them in. Once they were in, then it's slow and love bombing, and this is going to help you, and it's great. Then once you're in, it's coercion and pressure and trauma. It's simplistic, but yeah, thanks, Cricket. Thanks for you guys sticking it out with me and being here and listening. I wish I could have edited it more in the beginning, but there was a lot of important information for a while in that book. Yeah, did you get some sleep, Scooter Mom? I did, but my normal schedule, 5 a.m. to noon. But I think that's why my brain's a little bit fuzzy. I haven't been awake that long. Matter of fact, I haven't even had much coffee. Usually I've had one of my cold brews by now. So sorry about that. I'm a little fuzzy today. I stayed up too late. Yeah. Oh, once they got you to sign that piece of paper, AA? Yeah, because now you've signed that paper. They got you now. I'm surprised it was that quick. What I've heard is sometimes it's a little bit slower than that, but Yeah, we had some really good conversations last night. That's why time flies. You don't see that time go by like that. I mean, the first panel on Dusty with the auction. So I don't know if you knew this, AA, but one of our protesters is getting criminal charges. And he needs a lawyer, and so we did a fundraiser where we donated items, the crafty people, to auction, and we made over $2,000 in 3.5 hours. It was amazing. So, and yeah, yeah, I'm interested. I've heard a lot from Dianetics at this point. 2325. Oh my goodness, that's so awesome. So awesome. Your first day on staff. Oh, geez. Yeah, I believe it because now you've signed that contract. But did you do the 2 or the 5-year contract? Because you would think they wouldn't be so harsh on staff because they want you to come back. Or do they? Here's a question I have. So you sign a 2 to 5-year contract in staff. When your contract is up, if you don't want to renew it, what kind of pressure do they put on you to renew it? Or is it easy to just say, okay, my contract's over, I'm done, and go back to being a public? That's something I've never heard anybody talk about. Because mostly all I've ever heard talked about was Sea Org, for the most part. Mm-hmm. There was a guy that walked by me that said after the Navy, he signed up for staff. So I've noticed that sometimes they'll get complete non-Scientologists to sign on as staff, as it sounds to me like a job, like just signing up for a regular job. And then you find out you're not going to get paid. And this guy said he had to go to another church to get fed because they weren't making any money. He wasn't getting paid. I don't know how long he was in though. He was walking by and he didn't have time to stop. I told him to please come back and tell me. I'd like to know more. I've never seen him again after that. So, but yeah, it's been a ride. So the next one won't be, I think, as hard because it won't be. This was like a textbook. So it was very, very dry at times. Oh, wrong one. There we go. Every time I go to click on a comment, it moves up. There's a new comment. Mm-hmm. Oh, and some of my research, when he was in the stuff with Jack Parsons, and there was another order he was in before that. I don't know if I talked about it in his brief history or not, but there were people involved in these things that he was in that were part of the SS in Germany. So there were influence, and I've said all along, because I've watched a lot of documentaries and stuff on World War II. I knew that he had researched Adolf, and because how do you control a whole country to believe a certain thing? Control the media, control the propaganda, and don't let them get any outside information. And keep them in fear, keep them re-stimulated, like and snitching on their neighbors. What does this sound like? So I know he got a lot of ideas from there. Yep. Yep. Oh, see, I never knew that. Wow. So it's stay or get kicked out. Oh, I didn't hear that. Oh, maybe I did. That kind of sounds familiar. To find and train her replacement. So she had to find somebody to take her place. Oh, that's diabolical. So is the threaten to declare you. But I have read enough about it to understand how there were a lot of the population that didn't know what was going on. We're like, how did you not know? Because they controlled the media. All they knew is their Jewish neighbors were being relocated. For a long time, they didn't know about the camps or how bad they were or what they were doing there because they controlled the narrative. And so a lot of people just didn't even know. So just because you were German during that time doesn't mean you were involved or even really or some of them said by the time they found out it was too late. The control was overwhelming. There wasn't a lot they could do about it. So that's why, I can really put myself in people's shoes on both sides. I do the same thing with the Scientology, and that's why for anyone to have gotten out of Scientology, I can be forgiving of some behaviors because I think they don't recognize how much you do some anybody that's getting help when they got out is good, but there are those that don't, that think they can come out of this. So John Atek talked about it. He said they figured it takes about 12 and a half years to recover from being in Scientology with help, with therapy. Unaided, possibly never. That was a scary thought. Ugh. Well, glad you're out. That's all I can say. I mean, it's hard to get those years back. Similar to me, I shouldn't have been in the condition that I was in. A jerk doctor, messed up my meds, which changed my whole life. And it's hard not to be bitter sometimes that so much of my life was upended because of that. And had I not been so sick, I probably could have sued the guy. Him, the hospital. That's good. I think there's a lot of people in there that's just not their personality. Just because you're taught that, just because you live in that environment, not everybody is going to become that. So, and I that yeah, that maybe you can help me with this. When I was live streaming, I was trying to remember there's a derogatory term they use if you're kind. Like if you're kind to somebody, there's something they say to you. Because even kindness is looked down upon, it sounds like, when you're in there. It might be a Sea Org thing more than anything. So I don't know if you know. Where's my water? But I could have. I could have. But I was so sick for so many years, and I didn't even know what the statute of limitations were, so I never did. But I think covert hostile. That's what they say when you're kind? You're being covertly hostile? I'm writing that down because this is something I mention a lot. Covertly hostile. Because I'll forget it again. Or tone or 1-1. Yeah, we just read a little bit on that tone scale. Wow. And see, that's what I mean. But like I said, I can only hope. Somewhere, somehow, and all of these people working and doing things, there's gonna be a crack. There's a dam is gonna break somewhere, and there's gonna be a change. It's just we got to keep chipping away at it, and I just hope we don't get too discouraged if it takes too long. Oh, David, thank you so much. That's awesome. That will help with my parking. And we'll see if anybody. Now, sometimes I found out that when you gift memberships, it doesn't always go to people actively in the chat. Or somehow if you had been in the chat, I don't know. If you have something turned on, you can get a gifted membership even if you're not there at that moment. That was the other word. Reasonable is considered a derogatory term. Yeah, that one I do remember. Oh. Probably because it's so unusual. Sounds like. It's my opinion. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's nice. Thank you, David. Appreciate that. Yeah, I like that better than super chats or any of that kind of stuff because everybody, we all get to win on that one, which is cool. People don't have to be in the chat to receive a membership. It's kind of cool that way. I've had people show up in my chat because they received a gift membership. Okay, yeah. That's what I heard. I know. Isn't that cool? So I was going through, I finally figured out how to look at my memberships, and I couldn't believe how many people were actually members. I was like, but I know a lot of it's been gifted memberships. And I think when people have been gifted a membership, there's a lot of people that might, after that expires, might stay a member, which is nice. Do-gooder and bleeding heart are also used. Oh, well, yeah, they don't want you to think. Of course not. That's the whole thing. Do-gooder, bleeding heart. Time to think is derogatory. Yeah, that's true, Irish. That's true. If you take time to think, they call it figuring. Okay. The stuff, the words that they use is, yeah, David, yeah, see? So you get something out of it, they get something out of it, the channel gets something out of it. I think it's great. Thank you. It's all about creating apathy and dehumanizing people. Oh, that was something I wrote that down last week when we went over the John Atack video. It was Mock T. I think it was your comment I wrote down. Hang on, I got the notes right here. Oh, hold on. Oh. Oh, sitting here too long. It's hard on my back. That hurt. Yeah, so if you weren't here when I did that, I had two of your quotes that I saw in the chat that I wrote down. Let's see. And you said, yep, that was you. You said apathy is the biggest threat to humanity, not evil itself, because evil can only spread through apathy. That was a really good quote. Well said. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, and that too. Where am I at? No, I didn't. How would you do that? Yeah, that sounds interesting. How would you use ChatGPT? It's good to know, David. Good to know. Yeah. That's interesting. I'll check that one out. But yeah, cognitive dissonance, or the non-technical term, just constantly stressed out. That's why you guys have to have stats all the time. I don't think he ever really cared about stats that much. I mean, they do. I think it's just to keep you under constant pressure. Oh well. Yeah, I've heard something similar like that before, but it was a good spot to have that comment, because I was going over the John Atak and Natalie interview, and I was just pulling out parts to talk about, and I wrote down 2 of yours out of 3 comments. 2 of them were yours. The other one was Scientology is comparable to Eastern Germany. Stasi made it impossible to trust anyone and made everyone responsible for enforcing the rules. Empathy and trust are hard after that. Yeah. And I was just talking about that earlier when I was talking about, I know he studied Germany. I know he studied how that guy, how does a leader of a country, make people do the things that they did. And it's, ooh, that might be good. Stuck in a maybe. That's a good way to put it first. I understand, because everybody's talked about cognitive dissonance. I need to look that up a little bit more. I think. Learn a little bit more about that. Cognitive dissonance. I should just keep this open, because it's talked about a lot. I'd like to learn about it some more. My body hurts today. I'm very fuzzy today. That it is good, AA. If you're struggling to remember the lingo, that's good that you're forgetting it. Adam, that's interesting. Dusty, after I left you, me and Scooter Mom and Cricket and a bunch of other ones were on until 4:30 in the morning. Counting being on with you, I think I was on for 8 hours. I was like, ugh, I'm a little fuzzy today. It was fun though. Right. Yeah, when it's done slow, people don't realize it. And L. Ron Hubbard's son said that Scientology is black magic done slowly. And so that was that's why I did a separate quick video on L. Ron Hubbard and the black magic. He learned a lot of mind control and how, if you want how to make somebody give you money if you want money from them, or anything really. Did you? Oh, I talked about this last week. Remember when he said he wrote to his oh, I forget. Maybe I wrote it down. It was his plan. He learned a method. And he wrote this, his literary agent. He wrote it to his literary agent, and he said, well, anyway, he said it was a method where he could R a woman and she wouldn't know it. And then my immediate thought was Danny Masterson. Oh, okay. Yeah. It was. Yeah. He actually was Jack Parsons was an acolyte or protege, I don't know, of Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley lived in England from the late 1800s, and he died in 1947. So L. Ron Hubbard never got to meet him, but he read his book when he was 16, the Book of the Law, and he was, matter of fact, Adolf hated Aleister Crowley so much that he was on a list that when they took over England, he was to be unalived on sight. And the rest of the world thought he was the most evil person on earth. And L. Ron Hubbard idolized him. I know. There's so much when you go down that rabbit hole, and I didn't even go that deep. I didn't go that. And I got my black magic information from A Piece of Blue Sky. There's a chapter in it about L. Ron Hubbard and black magic. That's where I got it all from. Oh, I know. He called him a confidence trickster. And he would have only known about L. Ron Hubbard through people writing him letters about him. Or unless he talked to people that knew him, because I guess he was in England. I don't remember, but whatever he was told or found out, yeah, he didn't like him. But L. Ron Hubbard said they were friends. You know how he likes to do. The Book of the Lure. That's a good one. That's good. Well, the book is over. I don't mind talking about it a little bit more, but oh, I bet there was. Yeah, I bet there was. I'm sure there was, because like I said, he idolized him. He probably wrote to him. Yeah, that. And I thought I was German for so long. And then when I did my ancestry, I'm not at all. My husband is, though. Back to the Revolutionary War, though. Some of his ancestors come from the conscripts that were fighting for the British. And then when it was over, because they were conscripts and forced to do it, they offered them that they could stay. And so his ancestors stayed. That's all we know. We don't know anything more than that. Just a mutt. Me too. I'm 46% Scottish. I did not know. I know I've got Irish, but it's way less than I thought, because my great-grandmother was Irish. English, which I knew, and a little bit of Belgium and like the Netherlands. And I'm like, yep, that makes sense. We had a great-grandmother. I haven't found her name yet. She was 4'11", and that's why all the women in My dad's side of the family are short because she was short. So is my husband. I was talking to him about that last night or yesterday. Oh, man. I've got to get new glasses. That's when I've ever seen anything that even talks about where he came from. Some don't. He's just a headless horseman. I've heard that he's Hessian. Yeah. Well, I just thought because of my maiden name, but it's a maiden name from all different places. But yeah. But I always knew because my husband is part Cherokee, Native American, so that makes my kids part Native American. I said, well, I'm the minority in the family. I said, I'm probably going to find out I'm the most, I don't even know if I'm saying this right, but I say I'm the most Anglo-Saxon person you'll find because I turn a light on and I burn. I'm definitely from up north, that's for sure. That's why I was not built to be in Texas. My husband and my kids, they're fine. They don't burn as easy. Me, I do. Oh, okay. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And then I guess they also brought conscripts too. I don't know the story behind that. I've never studied it. Matter of fact, that was the first time we knew about it. Was when he has a cousin who's done a deep dive into their family history, and they've been traced back to Ireland, and they've been traced back to German, and then they were the Cherokee Indians. If you've ever heard about them, there's the Trail of Tears where they forced marched all the Cherokee to Oklahoma, I believe. Well, he was of the Indians that stayed in the mountains and hid and didn't go. And so his family's all from up in the mountains of Virginia. Yeah, but he's not interested in it. I'm like, I would love to have a heritage like that. And I tried to get my kids involved. So none of them are really involved in any of that, like some are. No tribe, they don't know any of that stuff as far as I can tell. So, but you can tell when you look at them. And my son, they're both thin, light framed. My son is taller, and when he gets a tan, oh, you can tell. All right, bye, Cold Blue. Yeah, I need to get off here too. I can talk forever, and I'd do it if you let me. So let's see. I guess we're starting Piece of Blue Sky next week. I'm going to be doing a panel on fibromyalgia mostly, but we can talk about chronic pain too. I'm going to have some of the creators that also have it like me. Scooter Mom, some other one, Cheryl. Oh, still. I think I'm going to schedule that for Sunday after next. That way it'll give everybody a chance to be prepared for it that are going to be on the panel. So next week, I guess we'll start Piece of Blue Sky. Bye, Cricket. I'm not too into the Hessian part of my family, but it's best research, so I know enough about it. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. Oh, chronic pain. Like, I understand the guy that shot that insurance guy. They found out he's got issues. I understand how that can really mess you up mentally. Not, I don't okay what he did, but I can see how it could push somebody over the edge. I mean, I ended up in a mental hospital twice after I got sick, because you go from being, normal person working and doing things to being in pain all the time and in the bedroom 24/7. It messes with your mind. It's like torture. It's no different to me than going somewhere and being tortured. Pacific 6, so that's 8 my time. Okay. Usually what's been happening, Carrie Ann, is that's when my husband gets up around that time, and I haven't been able to make it because he gets up, we might eat, and I help him, I get his lunch together, so it hasn't worked out well. No, I didn't follow that part of it. Yeah, well, my husband literally was on the phone screaming with this workers' comp insurance. That's what started this whole thing with me. Because they wouldn't do an MRI. They just refused. And he couldn't understand why they would do it. But he would have never blamed the corporation. It was that person that he was on the phone with refused. I'm sure that's what they were told to do, but still. And I'm sorry, anyone can do anything with the right of a pen or a keyboard if they want to help. Be able not to function the way you normally do. Yeah, and mine was overnight. It wasn't gradual. So what I'm going to do in the meantime, I'm going to do a short video of my health history, because I don't want to take up, it's a long story and it's complicated, and I didn't want to take up time on the panel to give the whole history. So and since there's a lot of people that are similar or interested, I'm going to do my whole history from start to finish on a video before the panel. That way I can just, go over it in basic, more briefly than I would, because I literally, it'd probably take me a good 15 minutes. I don't want to take 15 minutes on a panel. I want to let everybody else tell their stories. All right, so I'm going to try to do it the 16th, I think, Sunday the 16th, either at the normal 3 o'clock time or 5. It'll depend on, because I know you're on the West Coast, and then we have people on the East Coast, so we have all different times. So we'll coordinate and get the best time for maybe we'll do 4 o'clock instead of 3 or 5. But that's what we'll figure out. So I think it's going to be Sunday after next. And I'm about to coordinate with it. So when I email you my address, we can talk more about it in the email too. So thank you all for being here through this journey. It was enlightening and interesting and tedious at times, but we did it. So when I look at Piece of Blue Sky, I will decide if we want to read every word or if we just want to pull parts out of it and just talk about it. So we'll figure that out as we get together and go along. All right. Thank y'all. Go watch your basketball game, Scooter Mom. I'll see y'all next week. Bye.